I feel the internal fight is the balance between what I want and society and my family's expectations of me. Because growing up, we immigrated to the U.S. at a young age, but my parents, having lived over 30 years in China until that point, they're still very much Chinese in their way of thinking. Like have a steady job, have the safety net, right, of your salary, so you could provide for your family. So growing up.
Blessed love and respect, champion. What's the worst that you've ever had? Mine was waking up one day realizing that I had so much to offer the world, but because of the lack of time, poor energy, and a shitty focus, I failed to do so. Sounds familiar? Hopefully this isn't you. But can I tell you a secret? If you're not practicing these secrets, you'll be in the same position as I was. I want to share with you what I've been learning about the world's most accomplished and influential leaders, so that you can become better at mastering your mind, body, and ability to be more productive and persuasive. I realize that no one is telling the real story of leadership, where there's more downs than there is ups. And this podcast is for creative, high-impact leaders who would like to achieve their highest level of performance so that we can 10x the positive impact we are making in the world. Together, let us make leadership sexy by leveling up into our highest performing self, mastering all 6 secrets of the world's highest performing leaders. But the real question is, how do we do it? Join me on a journey to self-mastery as I share with you the stories of the world's highest performing leaders to help you live a more purposeful and fulfilled life. This is Deano, your high performance coach, and it's time to level up. Bless respect, champion. Now today we are going to level up with Nan Yang, and I have had the privilege and the opportunity to work personally with this champion. And to tell you this, he has some of the most emotional strength that I've ever seen in a human being. And just to share with you a bit about who Nan Yang is, Nan Yang has over 10 years of experience as a mentor and a counselor to students since his undergraduate days at UCLA as a peer counselor. And after college, he worked as an instructor, specifically with college students, and he pursued his master's degree in international education and in Shanghai while working as a college counselor here in Shanghai in Pinghe School. Now, Nan Yang is also an amateur boxer. So not only leadership is just a small part of what he's up to, but he's also an amateur boxer and considered to be a high performer in my books. And at this current moment, Nan Yang is transitioning into the world of entrepreneurship, where he'll be a creative writing coach, helping a lot, even more students craft their abilities to being a creative writer. It's really an honor to have you here in this conversation with me today, Nan Yang. How are you doing?
I'm good, Deano. Thank you for introducing me. That was a wonderful introduction. Yeah. And it's my first podcast, so a bit anxious but excited to be here.
Wonderful. It's an honor to have you here. So let me just start with this question, Nan. When did you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Like, I know it's not easy to leave a 9-to-5 job and journey into the unknown, but when did you have this desire?
I had this desire more consciously maybe about 3 years ago, maybe 2018, 2019, so about 3 or 4 years ago. The reason was because I was kind of stuck like at an office job, and although I like my work, I feel like I could help more students and work on my own time without the office environment. So starting from maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
And what would you say was that major driver? What was really driving you to take this step?
The drive was that I was a little bit tired of my office job, not so much in terms of the nature, not in terms of working with students, but more in terms of like sitting in a cubicle like every day. And then maybe like because of cultural differences, I couldn't really connect with my coworkers as much as I wanted to. So those were the 2 driving factors.
And what would you say right now is the major struggle that you're facing with this experience?
So actually, I think the turning point was meeting you in 2021, so last year, and then we've been working together. But I feel like the main struggle I have with right now is just quitting my job, like actually talking to my employer and deciding not to sign. I think that's one thing because that's still scary. um and then actually, just going for it, getting clients, and actually, because I had like freelance work in the past where I did this nature, but I didn't really put too much pressure on myself because I could always fall back on the job. But right now, if I were to quit my job, which I'm planning to, then all the income, that it's almost like establishing myself as a brand, being self-employed. So I think that's the biggest challenge.
And let me ask, like, what are you really, what's happening internally when it comes to making this decision, like something that nobody knows? What's the internal fight like?
Now, if you're listening to this show, I believe it's because you are ready to take your performance to another level. And that is why I've created this show as a program in my high performance leader coaching ecosystem to help you master these high performance habits with accountability, structure, and guidance from me as your coach. And it is free for you today as my listener. Join my high performance leader coaching ecosystem right now. Go to levelupwithdeano.com. Again, go to levelupwithdeano.com. And Deano is spelled Deano. And if you're listening to this in China or you're watching an episode on YouTube, just click the link in the description below. And remember, it is time for you to level up.
I feel the internal fight is the balance between what I want and society and my family's expectations of me. Because growing up, we immigrated to the US at a young age, but my parents, having lived over 30 years in China until that point, they're still very much Chinese in their way of thinking, like have a steady job, have the safety net, right, of your salary so you could provide for your family. So growing up, I was actually, that was a challenge I was going through, because growing up in the West in Los Angeles, but also coming back to my parents and grandparents who came over at that time to raise me, I saw like a lot of difference, almost like a dichotomy. So that's the challenge now, is just the balancing, just the society, now, living in China, and then my parents' expectations, my family's in China, and then what I really want to do. Because I feel like they're happy for me that I found a job that I like, that I've been working here a long time, and they give me good benefits. But yeah, so that's what I'm trying to balance.
And like what has been helping? Like, what are some of the things that you've been doing that has been helping?
I think getting coaching has been helping. I also, because I feel like at work it's almost like a conflict of interest, because these are things that at least I am hesitant to talk to my coworkers with, right? Because there might be a conflict of interest, right? Because and then getting coaching from you, being in communities that have like-minded people also wanting to pursue an entrepreneurship or side hustle, and also just doing my own research, like on YouTube, like reading like Tim Ferriss, Tribe of Mentors. That's helped me. So those.
Yeah, that's a big name you just dropped, Tim Ferriss. I remember my university days. I'll eat his podcast for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. And I noticed you mentioned coaching, and coaching is not something that is popular in, say, China as yet. And as a immigrant, your heritage is Chinese, and now you are really active in being coach and also becoming a coach yourself. What has been some of the light bulb moments that you have had with this experience of coaching?
I can say I actually had my first experience with coaching was actually because I grew up playing basketball, and then I played basketball since I was like 5 years old, and then until I was in middle school, I was just kind of average or above average, right, for my team. But then it really made a difference. Like I was the same player, but I would remember my dad would always say that you should be better than you are at. You should work on your weaknesses. You should be better. But then I met a coach actually in 7th grade that although I was the same player, he kind of just focused on my strengths and also most importantly made me believe in myself, right? That I could be able to dominate a game. And so I think that's, even though I had the same skills, that was when like a light bulb switch. So that was my first experience with coaching, like over 15 years ago. When I came to China, there is definitely also coaching and gym train, as in like gym coaching and gym trainers.
Yeah.
But the positive is that the cost is very cheap, like compared to the US. Like I would go to like a Chinese gym and the coaching was like, literally only $20 per hour, right? So which is very cheap. But what they kind of do is that they almost want, it's not really coaching, it's almost like they want you to be reliant on their service. It's like they tell you, they stand next to you and talk to you while you're on the treadmill, they count your reps for you. But after a while I realized it was good to have that, but it's not really needed, and it's not what I really wanted to long term. So actually working with you was my first experience with real coaching, and I gained a lot of insight. I think one is that we talked about this last week, was that you actually decide as a coach who you work with and not the other way around. Because that was like a misconception I had, was before I thought that coaches was like they could take on any client and they just need to sell the product and worry about it later, which I have encountered as well, where they sort of program to me, but because not enough people joined, they canceled the program. And it's like unfortunate things like that. And also another thing is just asking questions. I thought the coach at first was supposed to give you the answers, but it's actually asking me the questions in order for me to find out my own answers on my own, because I feel like everyone's different, and then what works for one person may not work for another person. And I have the answers. So the coaches like to bring it out of me, similar to how that my first basketball coach actually flipped that light switch. I still had similar amount of skills, but it's just like something flipped.
Yeah. And there's this, I love all of those insight that came up from you there. And a lot of us, a lot of the persons who are listening know of coaching sport sense. So maybe when you said working with me, they may think, oh, I'm your fitness. But this other paradigm of coaching, when it is more about your life, when you becoming a better leader in what you do. What's the difference, or the thin difference between those two different style of coaching based on your experience?
I feel one thing I wanted to bring up, and let me know if I'm missing anything, but I feel like a coach is supposed to be teaching you the skills, but I feel like that's only just like 20% of it. It kind of flipped. The 80% I realized when working with the coach. Actually, I wanted to mention my boxing coach, because since I got to China 6 years ago, I've been an amateur boxer. And then there was a time right before the pandemic that, I lost a match to like someone that I should have beat. And then that time I was already practicing boxing for like 6 years already. And I just kind of wanted to move on to the next thing, because I felt like, that was it for me, but then I was lucky enough to meet my boxing coach, Renat. And then he actually showed me my blind spots. I think he showed me what I wanted, what I needed to work on, that I wasn't realizing before. I think a lot of that had to deal with like my own physical fitness and my speed, and also repetition on the fundamentals, certain things. So it just, by making me realize my blind spots, I feel like that's what coaching has brought to me the most with my boxing coach and also you.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Yeah.
And tell me, what is a journey that you are now going on that's, that really came out of all these experience of coaching? What's the journey that's on?
I feel like it really helped. I know we're all on our individual journey. Everyone's journey is different, but I just want to give a shout out to you because I thought that you were, literally having your coaching practice for years. But I just found out recently that you only started this like 9 months ago and that was after quitting your job, similar to the situation I'm facing now. But then you told me that you've been working on this for many years before, right? Through your Spartan experience and through like leading others, right? So it's not so, and that made me realize that in myself too. So I feel like it gets me excited on the journey because there are other people going along the journey with me, and then there's always that support. And I feel like you're responsible for your own journey, or else you're gonna be led by other people. For example, like by doing a job, right, or working for a company that I had experience with. I feel like you're just gonna, if you don't make your own decision, other people will make it for you.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a really big one. Powerful,
Yeah.
powerful there. And if you had to go back, say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and have a conversation with your younger self,
Yeah.
what would you tell him?
Oh wow. 5 or 10 years ago. Wow, I was just thinking time flies. 10 years ago is about when I graduated college, right? I would say maybe I felt like I was doing some things, like I was dabbling and kind of just trying different fields, like not just sticking to one job, but having multiple jobs, which kind of gave me the skills that I have now, or that let me had a good foundation. I felt like that was actually more powerful or more helpful than being restricted to one job. But if I were to do something different, I probably would have maybe change my environment sooner. For me, that environment, that change was finding a master's program that allowed me to go to China. If I didn't find that program, I probably wouldn't have come to China. But that even if I didn't go to China, I probably would have switched the environment, like go to a different city, because I feel like by changing a new environment, that kind of gets me out of my comfort zone, and I would have to level up and adapt to that. That would be one. And I felt like many of the things I have learned, especially in like the past 6 months, I felt like I could have developed those habits earlier if I had a chance, because I felt like actually I was a pretty good high school student that let me get into a prestigious college. But in college, I realized that what was working in high school was not working in college. So I was like very average in terms of grades. And I just didn't know why, because I'm like, I'm still working hard. I'm still doing the same thing. But by that time, you're kind of get caught up in everything that it was hard to change. But I feel like, so I would have started practicing these habits maybe earlier.
Yeah. And talking about habits, what are these habits you're talking about that you should have been practicing?
High performance habits, because I felt like, because first I thought it was time management, and then before I thought I had pretty good time management. And some things even if it meant like writing the paper like the night before, but still getting it done and feeling a sense of accomplishment, at least it was efficient, right? But then I later found out that was called Pareto's principle, and there's better ways to go about doing that. But I actually first heard of high performance. I think it was around the time of pandemic when I was just browsing YouTube like everyone else, and I came up about this UCLA student named Richard Yu, who was like 10 years young. Yeah, it's a small world. I'm like, he was this like still an undergrad at UCLA, and he had like close to 100,000 subscribers. I'm just like, this average guy whose background reminded me of myself was able to get this much followers, and he had his own business, and he was working, and he was making a pretty decent salary, doing on top of being a student. So that kind of motivated me. But I think because of some things like the time zone barrier and other things, I just couldn't work with him. But then about a year and a half later, then I was lucky enough to encounter you through like the Monday Motivational Committee, that community. So that was actually very similar things. And through that, I was able to branch out into some other communities.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, Nan. What are you most proud of on your journey so far? What are you most proud of?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this. I actually, not because of this interview, like about 2 weeks ago, I came up with a list and then I wrote them like year by year, and just 5 or 7 accomplishments during this each year that I've been in China. So you're asking if there was one thing I'm most proud of, right?
Well, the floor is yours.
Okay. So I would just say there's 2 realizations. I feel like in the past few years, the most thing I'm proud of is my boxing, because I feel like, I came to China, I started boxing in 2013, but I never thought I would be able to compete. And then in China, I thought that I would definitely continue this hobby, but I was restricted by that. I attended a few matches in Shanghai, and then I remember in like 2017, I'm just like, what if I was there up on the stage? So, and then slowly I had my first match that year, and then I fought in like many of the bigger events, like they call it white collar boxing in China. And then so far I have about 17 fights so far in Shanghai. So that's about 3 or 4 fights every year since I got here. Wow. Yeah, so I feel like that overall, that's the biggest accomplishment, not just like win or lose, but because of what it brought me, like the lifestyle it's brought me, the people, the communities that I met, the coaches I met. So I feel like that was the top experience. But also looking back on that list, I think that the times when I have the most change or have the most struggle is when I leveled up or when I improved the most. So the last time that happened, I was 2016. I remember that year I ended a relationship, a long-term relationship. That year I started my master's program, and then I came to China. So a lot of things happened that year, yeah. So looking back on it, even though it was a time that a lot of things was happening, that was like, those transitions are when I grow the most. So that was another realization that I came up with.
Yeah. As they say, obstacle makes us stronger. Yeah.
The obstacle is the way.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way, most definitely. And it's really amazing that hearing you share your journey, all the way from your time in college to where you are now in China, being a Chinese immigrant coming back to China and facing all these struggles that you have and being able to overcome. I know there may be a lot of individuals listening right now who may not have experienced coaching and who don't even know what coach, a bit hesitant towards even getting a coach themselves, because I've seen how coaching has played a major role in your life, from your boxing coach, from your basketball coach, and now working with a high performance. Tell to those particular listeners.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually very skeptical, because I'm a skeptical person in general. And also I had my share of not so good coaches, or there's a lot of times when I got coaching, but that fell below my expectations. And that came in a variety of ways, right? That came in a variety, like the coach would leave suddenly, like even just after I signed to be with them. There were cases where like, I got some coaching, but then like the store shut down. Yeah, so there was a lot of, so I guess it's hard to find a good coach. I would say, I would definitely recommend coaching, but only if it's with the right coach, and that really makes a huge difference. I think also depending on what you want to do, because some things I feel like there's maybe you don't have a need to have a coach, because you cannot take your performance to a next level, I feel, at least, in too many things, or you wouldn't want to, or it's not realistic. But if you could just find coaching in areas you really want to improve with, that I would highly recommend it. It has to be with the right coach. And I find like it has to be done with trial and error to some extent, because it's very hard to, by chance, you just find out the right coach that works for you. That coach may be a good coach for someone else, but it might not work for you, and also vice versa. So, and also just referrals, maybe just like networking, like maybe ask around, and then they'll refer you to a right coach. And just try different coaches before you decide, I would say.
Yeah, wonderful. That's totally the advice. And you mentioned the right coach. How do you choose the right coach? How do you know when someone is the right coach for you?
It's a good question. I feel like the right coach may not necessarily have maybe a PhD in the degree. Like, he doesn't need to have a lot of master's or PhD degrees in the field. Because like in teaching, right? Like even if a chemistry professor teaches you introduction to chemistry, he may not be the best teacher because he cannot get that message directly to you. But I feel like it should be someone that had experiences where you could relate to, and so therefore he or she knows where you're coming from. And I just feel like the coach also should have your best interests in hand, because I've met some coaches that maybe they just are in it for the money, or at least the money was the top priority. So the advice that he or she would give you would be kind of contingent on you buying more courses. So I had that experience before, but I feel like it's also, after talking to a lot of coaches, I trust my gut instinct in terms of my communication with the coach, whether he's actually listening and the feedback he gives you with that. So also come with deciding about the coach.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nan, for the value that you have shared. And I'm really excited and looking forward to what's ahead for you. And with that said, what's ahead for Nan Yang in the coming years? What's on the horizon for you? What are you excited about, champ?
I'm excited for a lot of things. I think I was having a little bit of trouble before the last few weeks because of the pandemic in Shanghai, and everyone's in lockdown. But sounds cliche, but turn the obstacle into an opportunity. During this time, it really gave me the space to work on my business, to have more coaching calls and community calls, and also writing my own ebook, which is set to May 28th. May 28th is the date. But I think also just generating the momentum, right? Just by focusing on one thing, that kind of generates your momentum to do other related things. So it doesn't, before I was a little bit overwhelmed about there's just so many steps, 10 steps I had to take to start a business. But I would just say, if you were to focus on one or two key things and generate that momentum, the rest will come naturally, or come as a result of that. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to launch my own website, to launch my own coaching, and also my own like WeChat group, my own blog. So I have a lot of ideas.
Wonderful. And for those who are listening, who may be, in your niche, in your audience niche, how can you connect and reach out to you? They're writing to another level.
So through my WeChat. So it's Nan Braveheart. So Nan, N-A-N, Braveheart as in the movie, my favorite movie, and then 89, the year I was born. So feel free to add me on WeChat, and then but I already have a blog, and I'm gonna have a website coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, champion. And it's really an honor to have you sharing your experience and your expertise, and even dropping some powerbomb quotes and insight for the audience. I'll be leaving all your information down in the show notes, so that those of you who would really like to take your creative writing to another level. This man has 10 years of experience in this field, and I know that Nan Yang is a fighter, not only emotionally, mental, but literally.
I would just say writing is not just what's on the surface level. It's just getting your ideas down on paper. But I also want to impart all the experiences I had through sports competition, boxing, basketball, and also my experiences being bicultural, being born in China, but growing up in the US and then coming back to my roots. I feel like all of these, I have a story to tell. And at the end of the day, a lot of writing, especially creative writing, is a form of storytelling. So what I want to work with students is to help them find their own voice and their own story, and to make that into a habit.
Awesome. Thank you, champ. And that's our time.
Okay, I appreciate you, Deano. Thank you.
Blessed love and respect, champion. Now, this is your high performance coach here, and I want to thank you for showing up today. Not for me, but showing up for yourself. Because every episode of this show is designed to help you get one step closer in the direction of becoming an even higher performing leader. Living in and from your fullest potential in whatever you do, for those you love and for those that you serve. And we are here to help you every step of the way. Now, if you're listening to this show, I believe it's because you are ready to take your performance to another level. And that is why I've created this show as a program in my high performance leader coaching ecosystem, to help you master these high performance habits with accountability, structure, and guidance from me as your coach. And it is free for you today as my listener. Join my high performance leader coaching ecosystem right now. Go to levelupwithdeano.com. Again, go to levelupwithdeano.com. And Deano is spelled D-E-A-N-O. And if you're listening to this in China or you're watching an episode on YouTube, just click the link in the description below. And remember, it is time for you to level up.